to CBS News 24/7. I'm Reed Cowan. Our monitors take us to New York. This hour, where incoming border czar Tom Homan meets New York Mayor Eric Adams. They're talking about immigration issues for the Big Apple. So Adams and Homan entering this meeting a little bit at odds. The mayor wants to get federal help in identifying and detaining immigrants committing crimes with the ultimate goal of deportation. But New York City remains a sanctuary city by law, and Homan vowed to withhold funding from sanctuary cities if they don't assist with the mass deportation plan of the Trump administration. So we also are learning at this hour more details about where the mass deportations could begin. Homan vowing to start in Chicago on January 21st, saying the streets will be flooded with ICE agents. CBS News New York's Natalie Didridge with his warning of legal action if Chicago's Mayor Johnson or Illinois Governor Pritzker tries to stop the plan. Listen.
Good afternoon. Well, New York City Mayor Eric Adams will be meeting with the Trump administration's newly appointed border czar, Tom Homan. Now, this meeting is a closed meeting, no media allowed inside, but the mayor has said that he will address the press later this afternoon around 3 p.m. So we don't know the exact details of what will be discussed, but we do have an idea. Mayor Adams last week told CBS News that he plans to work with the administration. He says he will not be warring with the administration. The mayor's meeting has prompted demonstrations here outside of City Hall all morning. Several groups were here. We heard from one demonstrator who said her parents are undocumented and now they are at risk of being deported. She says her family's at risk of being separated. Some worry that the mayor's meeting signals the city's willingness to align with the Trump administration's immigration policies. They want the mayor to say no to Trump and Homan's plans for mass deportation targeting undocumented immigrants. These advocacy groups say Homan was the architect of the zero tolerance policy separating thousands of immigrant families at the border. They're also concerned that Homan has stated he will reverse birthright citizenship, and also they're concerned about New York City's reputation as a sanctuary city. Now, this all comes as Mayor Adams is facing criticism over his handling of the migrant crisis. The mayor has argued that federal cooperation is necessary to ease strain on city resources. The mayor is expected to address the media around 3 p.m. this afternoon, and hopefully at that point we'll learn more details about this meeting. Outside City Hall in New York, Natalie Dudridge, CBS News New York.
Thank you for that. President-elect Donald Trump's pick of Kash Patel tapped to lead the FBI. It's going to pave the way for current FBI Director Christopher Wray, who announced his plan to resign at the end of the Biden term in January. Now, reacting to that announcement on social media, Donald Trump called it a great day for America and said Patel is the most qualified nominee to lead the agency, the FBI, in history. Wray is just 3 years short of his 10-year term. So let's go live to our nation's capital right now and CBS News political reporter Torian Small. Torian, how will this announcement impact Kash Patel's confirmation journey and process?
Well, Wray did this at a time where his replacement happened to be on the Hill interviewing for his job. Wray said during a town hall with the FBI that he was looking to keep the focus on the mission of the Bureau. He didn't explicitly say this, but it looks like he was looking to avoid a very public spat with the incoming president. This is really reminiscent to 2017. James Comey, his predecessor, was at odds with President Trump. Then he was, to put it nicely, publicly dismissed from his duties, which led to the nomination of Wray. So he was looking at two options here, either resign or be fired, like we saw happen with Comey in 2017. Republicans on the Hill, though, are supporting this because they feel like the FBI has been weaponized. So we're seeing a much quicker corralling around Patel versus the more controversial picks.
All right, I want to talk about Pete Hegseth. Once again, we find ourselves seeing him in the headlines, but today's interesting. He's reliably been meeting with Republican senators, but today he changed that. He met with Democratic Senator John Fetterman. What can you tell us about that meeting? Is that a strategy shift?
Yeah, Reed, initially this was a meeting set for the next round of Republican senators, including Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, who did, after meeting with him today, say that he's going to lend his support for Hegseth's nomination. But the inclusion of Fetterman is an interesting one. This makes the first time Hegseth will meet with a Democrat. And on top of that, Fetterman is a pretty interesting person when it comes to his public comments on Trump's cabinet picks. He's been trolling them, mocking their credentials for a while now, but when it comes to this specific meeting, he says he's open to dialogue. We're also seeing a softening among Democrats, not necessarily for Hegseth, but for some of Trump's other announced nominees. We saw Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, as well as Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois, say that they will be supporting Marco Rubio for Secretary of State. We caught John Ossoff, Georgia senator, in the hallway, and he says he's open to giving Trump's nominees a fair shake. That, again, doesn't necessarily apply to Hegseth, but it is at least a softening from Democrats here on the Hill.
All right, so we also want to ask you about the Capitol Police Chief discussing security threats targeting elected officials. Stay with us. We want to let our viewers hear what he had to say, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
Who knew that threats would go through the roof, the number of threats? Who knew that the tactics that folks that want to disrupt the lives and disrupt the work of members of Congress would do, would result in people, having, 50 people swatted in the last month, had people disturbed in the middle of the night in their homes because there's people out banging on pots and pans, and just the heightened threat level in this country has not gone down.
So Chief J. Thomas Manger there, more than 50 swatting attacks in the past month, Torian. What is a swatting attack and how big of a threat is this?
Well, Reed, swatting is the illegal, but most importantly, dangerous scheme of making false emergency calls in the hopes of dispatching SWAT teams to target homes and, in this case, politicians. What's disturbing about this is, for example, just a few days ago, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia was the target of a fake bomb threat. The police officers who responded, one in particular, got into a fatal crash with a woman in her town. She was pronounced dead upon arrival to the hospital. But Marjorie Taylor Greene commented on this in a social media post. She said she was heartsick around this incident, and she warned again just how dangerous this is, saying that these political threats have fatal consequences. So it's a very scary situation, and the frequency in which it's happening to politicians is obviously causing pause for the chief there.
Right, unless anybody think that these swatting calls are coming from within our own borders, there is some reporting today that at least where Marjorie Taylor Greene's call and that bomb threat is concerned, it was traced back to a Russian IP address. So this could be a very wide problem for them to chase down. Torian Small, thank you so much for that conversation. Always great to have you on CBS News 24/7, my friend. All right, to the White House now. President Joe Biden commuting the sentences of 1,500 people and pardoning 39 more. This marks the largest act of clemency in one single day. Commutations apply to convicts who were removed from prison and allowed to serve their sentences at home during the COVID-19 pandemic. The 39 pardons involve defendants convicted of nonviolent crimes. Clemency comes less than 2 weeks after Joe Biden pardoned his son Hunter on federal tax and gun charges. When we come back, new evidence coming forward in the case that targeted killing of the United Healthcare CEO in Manhattan. What the evidence is and how it speaks to placement of the man that police believe killed Brian Thompson. Stay with us. Welcome back to CBS News 24/7. Well, there he is, the president-elect Donald Trump, celebrating being named Time Magazine's Person of the Year. He rang in the bell at the New York Stock Exchange today, and he had this to say about that distinction.
I have to say, Time Magazine getting this honor for the second time. I think I like it better this time, actually, because we did a good job. We had a great first term, despite a lot of turmoil. caused unnecessarily. We're going to have a tremendous run. We have to straighten out some problems, some big problems in the world. It's when we left, we didn't have any of these problems. We didn't have Russia with Ukraine. We didn't have Israel October 7th. We didn't have the Afghanistan disaster. We didn't have inflation. We had no inflation. And we had a very strong economy. And we're going to do that again, but I think we're going to even up it because now we have experience that we didn't have.
There's also the headline that is punctuated by the video you see to our monitors. And here it is. CBS News confirms the president-elect invited Chinese President Xi Jinping to the inauguration. We reached out to the Xi administration to see if he plans to attend. At this point, there's no answer. President Xi, by the way, if that happens, would be the first leader in U.S. history to attend an inauguration from another country. Trump had this to say about that invite while leaving the stock exchange.
Well, I've invited they've all accepted. Everybody I've invited.
President Xi as well?
Very good relationship. Thank you.
What's your message to Republican senators up on Capitol Hill?
All right, let's move to our second position.
We're going to get the country going.
All right, I got to apologize for that. Very hard to make out what he had to say. We'll try to turn that around and get it to you online. But let's talk about the significance here. CBS News politics reporter Libby Cathy joins us now from West Palm Beach. Nice to have you with us, Libby. What is driving that invitation to President Xi?
Yeah, good to be with you, Reed, from a windy West Palm Beach. I can actually tell you what Trump said there this morning, too, asked on the New York Stock Exchange about that invitation to other world leaders to his inauguration. This after our Jennifer Jacobs broke the news that Trump invited China's President Xi Jinping to his inauguration January 20th. That invitation made in the days just after winning re-election. Caroline Leavitt, the incoming White House press secretary, and others on the Trump transition team say this is reflective of Trump creating an open dialogue, not just with U.S. allies, but with adversaries as well. They say this is Trump being a leader on the world stage. And you're right, this has not been done before when in terms of a foreign leader actually attending an inauguration, the peaceful transfer of power on U.S. soil. But Trump continues to break norms, as we talk about on here all the time. We also know that Viktor Orban, the leader of Hungary, has been invited. He was at Mar-a-Lago across the bay behind me last week. So Trump inviting world leaders, saying that everyone he's invited has said they'll come, but we have not confirmed that Xi Jinping will be there. He was just saying that they have a very good relationship. You heard it there on the stock exchange floor there, Reed. But inauguration officials already preparing for the scenario of world leaders attending in Washington come January 20th, Reed.
All right, pretty fascinating times. And, you know, these bumps are causing some ripples. We saw the FBI director, Christopher Wray, saying he's going to step down. But also we're seeing somebody else sort of follow the same suit, the FAA leader. Tell us what you know about that and who could be waiting in the wings there.
Yeah, this is breaking news as of this morning. The current FAA director, Mike Whitaker, announced that he will be stepping down. Now, the FAA, they have 5 years on their terms. He still had a couple years left on his term, but stepping down before Trump takes office come January 20th. This, as you said, coming after Christopher Wray did the same. Trump has not indicated who he wants to put in that position, but this is just reflective of people in Washington, career politicians in some cases, or career diplomats, I should say, stepping down, seeing the change in Washington coming and wanting to get out now before Trump installs his own picks, kind of reading the writing on the wall. Democrats, meanwhile, sounding the alarm at things like this. And Whitaker having years left on his term, it's really to be seen who will replace him. But the FFA really had a rocky history, as we've talked about on your show, too. So we'll be reporting on that if Trump does name someone else and when that happens.
We know you'll have it covered. I have to ask you, though, more information from the Trump transition team. The president-elect has tapped loyalist Kari Lake as leading something called Voice of America. What is Voice of America? What kind of a reach does it have in promoting and sharing the messages of American media and American narratives to the rest of the country? And why Kari Lake? We knew she lost the governor's race. She lost the Senate race. Why her?
Yeah, Voice of America is this federally funded broadcaster. It actually got started around World War II to broadcast news about Adolf Hitler. It's broadcast from the United States to other countries, so those other countries weren't getting German propaganda, so they could get unbiased, nonpartisan media from the United States. It's kind of impromptu state media for the U.S., but it has a huge impact and huge reach in countries across the world. Trump says he's tapping Kari Lake for this because of her background as a broadcaster. To give a little bit of context here for those who don't know Kari Lake, she ran for office for Senate, for governor in Arizona. She lost both of those elections, running as a close ally to Trump, running as an election denier as well. But before that, she was a Phoenix broadcaster and anchor for 20 years. And so Trump said that's why he wants to tap her for this position, because of her background as a news broadcaster. While now, of course, she calls many in the news the fake news and the enemy of the people. So definitely a controversial pick. And it's not totally clear that she can be installed right away, Reed. This position, while it's not Senate confirmed, the director of VOA, it's another one of those positions where the current person still has time left on their term. Also, there's an advisory board, I should say, that appoints this director. That advisory board has to be Senate confirmed. So that's going to take some time. Kari Lake, though, already taken to Twitter and saying that's an honor. She is going to accept this position, but we'll actually see when that takes effect. And I should say Voice of America and Trump have had tiffs in the past over their coverage of COVID. He did not like that. So this is another example of him trying to get his picks in advance and people that were loyal to him, Reed.
And the message out to the rest of the world filtered through Kari Lake if she gets in. Libby Cathy, CBS News politics reporter, thank you so much for that. Well, just days after the man accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was taken into custody, New York investigators say evidence places him at the scene of the crime. Here's what we're talking about. NYPD investigators say they collected a water bottle and a wrapper near a Starbucks where that suspect was seen on surveillance video about a half hour before they say Mr. Mangione killed Thompson. Police also say they found a cell phone in an alley near the hotel with fingerprints that also matches Mangione's. So CBS News correspondent Lilia Luciano joins us now from an area right outside of where Mr. Mangione is being held. You're about 7 miles south of Altoona where police arrested Mangione. Before we get to the evidence, you got a picture of what day-to-day life...
I'm going to correct you for the record, because I actually shifted to the courthouse. So for accuracy, if this doesn't look like a prison, it is not. I'm back at the courthouse chasing some leads close to Altoona, but we will be back in Huntington later, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what's happening there that I'm getting from the corrections. But please go ahead, Reed.
Well, I was going to ask you, you're getting an idea of what day-to-day life is like for former Ivy League student turned accused criminal. What is day-to-day life like for him?
That's right, Reed. So I got information just earlier from the Department of Corrections here in Pennsylvania. He is in a state prison awaiting that extradition. How long that will take depends on a whole bunch of factors. But in the meantime, I've learned that he is under maximum security. He is by himself in a cell, but he's not in solitary confinement. What I've learned from the Department of Corrections is that he is not right now is not accessing or does not get to spend time with other inmates. He has not been able to go outside, but that is something that will be available to all inmates, no matter at what level. I asked about whether he was in suicide watch. They said no, and no other kind of psychological order, and that he has not been violent. We're also learning, CBS News, from the NYPD or from NYPD sources, that he has not made any incriminating statements to investigators. But of course, we know that the evidence that the NYPD has been evaluating, other than what you detailed now, that first forensic evidence that the NYPD is announcing matches the suspect, that there was a notebook that had some to-do list, according to sources that tell CBS News. And sources also say that there were some statements in that notebook that read some kind of comments or pondering about whether to use a bomb or a gun for an attack, and deciding to use or in this negotiation personally writing about how a gun would be better than a bomb because it would spare innocent people's lives. There's also, of course, the 3-page document with 300 words that seems to detail comments about frustrations over the healthcare industry, and there's just a series of factors there that police are looking at, besides that physical evidence, besides the forensic evidence, to perhaps put together a motive. And this is just a little bit of everything that has been made available to media so far and that police have confirmed.
Lilia Luciano chasing every lead that is out there on this national story. Thank you so much. All right, when we come back, a lot of you love the music of country singer Morgan Wallen. And you know, the latest headlines have him in a little bit of trouble. He's going to be in court, and we're following what happens in court when we come back. All right, welcome back to CBS News 24/7. When we see it, you see it. We have some breaking news that's coming to us by way of reporting from the Associated Press. We thought we'd get this on the record. So a report from the Department of Justice. And keep in mind, this follows trying to knock down a fringe conspiracy theory advanced by some Republicans in Congress, says this report, that the FBI played a role in instigating what happened there on January 6th during the Capitol riots. So here's your headline. The FBI, they found, should have done more to collect intelligence before the Capitol riot, even though the Bureau did prepare for the possibility of violence on January 6, 2021. That is according to their report Thursday. But this is also a headline. It also said no undercover FBI employees. No undercover FBI employees were present that day, and none of the Bureau's informants were authorized to participate. So again, this report was to play down and knock down that fringe conspiracy theory that has been advanced, they say, by some Republicans in Congress. We wanted to get that on the record. Like we say, breaking news, always important and central to this broadcast. We'll have more information on that. And also, the entire report, the entire findings are on our website. All right, so let's talk about another thing. Today, the attorney for country music star Morgan Wallen is in a Nashville courtroom. Wallen, you might remember, entered a plea to the criminal charges against him. And it's hard really to make out what's happening in this video. But the video went down in history, and it's a part of that case. You see that circle right there? What happened in that circle is what this case is all about. If you look closely, it appears to show someone throwing a chair from a rooftop bar. And police say that someone is Morgan Wallen. And they arrested him on felony charges for this. Now, this happened back in April at the Chiefs Bar in Nashville. Earlier this week, the charges were reduced to just misdemeanors. But we want to talk about this and go deeper. CBS News correspondent Nicole Valdez, she joins us live now from the great city of Nashville. Nicole, what happened in court? What's the latest?
Hey, Reid, well, we're still expecting that hearing to happen in the next half hour or so. But what we're really unsure about is whether Morgan Wallen himself will be here present in court along with his attorney as they potentially enter a plea in this case. As you mentioned, there are several criminal charges here, including disorderly conduct and reckless endangerment here. Those reckless endangerment charges, initially felony charges, just lowered to misdemeanors as of yesterday. Now we're going to be looking at this case here at the district court, rather criminal court here for Davidson County. So a lot of questions still to be answered, but we do remember when this all happened back in April. Wallen mentioned arrested then and initially posted on Twitter just a few days after that incident saying that he regrets his decision. He thanks the police department as well as those who work at the bar. He was at Chiefs on Broadway and says he's not proud of the actions that he took. So we'll just have to wait and see really what direction they go in court today.
All right, Nicole, so great to talk to you there. Get some good music while you're there in Nashville. Thank you so much for talking to us on CBS News 24/7. Stay with us, everybody. We're back with more breaking news after the break. Welcome back to CBS News 24/7. That video to our monitors brings us the story of a Missouri man missing for months but found freed from a Syrian prison after rebel forces overthrew the president of that nation. He tells CBS News senior foreign correspondent Elizabeth Palmer about his months inside that very tough Syrian prison.
The first we knew of him was in a social media post this morning showing a bearded man on a mattress, and local people claiming he was an American prisoner who'd been locked up in one of the regime's most notorious jails. We found the house about 15 miles south of Damascus, and there was Travis Timmerman from Urbana, Missouri.
How are you feeling? Good. You look well.
Timmerman had been imprisoned for 7 months after crossing Syria's border illegally on a Christian pilgrimage.
What was the hardest part for you being in prison?
There wasn't a hard part. Well, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't bad. I was never beaten. The only really bad part was that I couldn't go to the bathroom when I wanted to. I was only let out 3 times a day to go to the bathroom. So that was quite the hardship.
And you had food and water?
I did.
On Sunday night, the prison guards vanished, and Monday morning a group of local men broke down the doors and let everyone go into a brand new Syria whose dictator had been toppled by Islamist fighters. Timmerman had no idea.
The men who freed you are the fighters who just come down from Idlib. So they've taken all the main cities in Syria. They're now in control. Did you know that?
No. All I've heard is that the old president he left, and that there's a new government.
You got more than you bargained for, maybe.
Huh. Well, I'm here.
You're alive.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Meanwhile, in the wake of Assange regime, a fallen regime that is, the U.S. government is rushing to find new clues on an American journalist's whereabouts. We keep hoping for positive headlines. Where Austin Tice is concerned, still missing in Syria for more than a decade. The U.S. believes he's alive somewhere in Syria, even though the Syrian leader never acknowledged his detainment. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, during his crisis tour in the Middle East, spoke on the matter earlier.
Every single day, we are working to find him and to bring him home, making sure that the word is out to everyone that this is a priority for the United States.
So Blinken is expected to meet with the Turkish foreign minister tomorrow for talks on how to handle the aftermath of Syria's overthrown president. We'll be watching that one. New York police believe 26-year-old Luigi Mangione is the man from the manhunt and the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, and they are building their case one step at a time. New and reportable developments here on CBS News 24/7. Police say shell casings found at the Midtown Hilton matched the 3D printed ghost gun Mangione had with him when police nabbed him in Pennsylvania. They also say his fingerprints match items near the murder. So let's break this down with CBS News legal analyst Jessica Levinson. Jessica, good to have you with us once again, my friend. I keep hearing all of this mounting evidence, and I just wonder what will be left for Mangione's defense team to try to get their client off the hook.
Well, one thing is not every case has a good defense. I mean, there are some cases that are just very strong and they go to trial because there simply isn't an offer on the table by the prosecutors because even though going to trial is always risky, they think they can prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt and they don't want to offer anything less than potentially the maximum charge here, obviously first-degree murder. In terms of the specifics of the defense, I think you will see them fight with respect to the introduction of the evidence you just talked about. You talked about ballistic evidence, those shell casings. You also talked about fingerprints. And what you can expect is for a defense attorney to, one, question that evidence, how it was handled, and then bring in their own experts to say, here's some reasons why you might want to question that evidence. Now, it's not always a great argument, but that is what we can expect when it comes to at least those pieces of evidence.
All right, so Governor Kathy Hochul says she's expecting the Manhattan DA's office to issue an indictment very soon. So what does that indictment do, and what does it need to cover? And what kind of impact does that indictment have on this extradition process, if any?
Right. So the extradition process is different. That's move from point A to point B.
Right.
The indictment is, as you noted, and the indictment is really about that first document that's going to kick off the criminal trial in the sense of it's going to detail the counts, the specific charges here, meaning the portions of New York's penal code that they say have been violated. Some basic facts, and sometimes indictments include things like maximum penalties. You have indictments, and we've talked about criminal cases before. Some prosecutors tend to add more facts than others, but it's basically the initial story, right? Here's the outline of where we're going to go, the counts, the charges, the facts.
Okay, so a lot of people have been talking about Mangione's health issues and sort of his retreat from society. We saw his social media presence just completely drop off about 6 months ago. A lot of people wondering what happened in that 6-month window. Does that provide his defense any sort of traction, that health and that dropping out of society angle?
It's a really good question because there's been so much reporting on it. And I think people tend to feel like there must have been something that happened. There must be something off. And the thing I want people to know, of course, is that you can struggle with serious mental health issues. You can struggle with serious physical issues. And it's not an excuse. It's not a legal defense when it comes to these particular charges, and frankly, most charges. Just because you're struggling and have deep mental health issues doesn't undercut the idea that you could form the level of intent necessary to commit murder. And there's a lot of evidence here to indicate that, again, he knew what he was doing, that he was actually hiding from the police. So what I think is important for people to know is if the defense truly tries to use an insanity defense, the bar for that is very high. And you essentially have to show that he did not know that what he was doing was wrong.
Well, then the question for the prosecutors, how do you counter that? And likely it would be saying, look, he planned this out step by step by step. Jessica Levinson, CBS News legal analyst, always great to talk to you. I hope to talk to you tomorrow. You hear it there. President-elect Donald Trump ringing the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange, standing in front of that Time magazine cover. Time naming Donald Trump their 2024 Person of the Year. It's the second time he received this distinction.
This is an honor, a tremendous honor. I brought some of our compatriots along with us. They're going to do a beautiful job for you for the next 4 years. And it's really been something very special. And I have to say, Time magazine getting this honor for the second time. I think I like it better this time, actually, but we did a good job. We had a great first term.
Let's go live to CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady outside the New York Stock Exchange. All right, Kelly, how was Trump received there?
So Reed, very enthusiastically, when he rang the bell on the floor, there were cheers of USA, USA, USA. And I know it doesn't look like it right now. It happened a couple of hours ago, but this whole area was just flooded with people. There was a lot more security there is right now. There was even a sniper on that roof above me, of course, because the president-elect was here. But yes, people were clamoring to get a look at him. And Reed, this is a very historic moment. There's only one other president that has done this in the past. It's Ronald Reagan. This is kind of the symbol of U.S. capitalism here, and the markets under his first term kind of was how Trump saw it as a metric of success, how they were doing. So this was kind of a very important moment as he goes into his next term in January.
Well, Kelly, Wall Street saw big gains right after Election Day. You and I were on television. We talked about that. But inflation continues to tick higher. That's a reality. Trump says he can't guarantee that tariffs or threatened tariffs won't raise the prices on what we all pay. So how does the market react to that reality that he cannot even guarantee that prices won't go up?
So this is really an interesting one because you haven't seen the market react negatively. We have continued that bull market trend since we did speak that day after the election. We've been hitting record highs day after day on these major indices. I can tell you businesses and consumers are expressing concern. Where I think things could change is when the president-elect does take office and we see are these threats. Is he actually going to put these tariffs into place? Is it going to work as a negotiating tool? That's when you could see the market start to react. There's a term, Reed, we call it animal spirits. It's essentially when investors are trading on vibes rather than facts. Very much they're trading on the optimism of what could be. Then we'll see the reality come January.
Animal spirits. You know somebody's going to trademark that for a tequila brand, Kelly. All right, so let's talk about the producer price index. What is it and what does it have to say about inflation coming down?
Okay, so producer prices. This is what companies pay the wholesale prices for goods and services in the U.S. And it's important because when this index goes up, that means likely consumer prices are going to go up because we buy from them. If their costs go up, they pass it down to us. What we saw today was not good when it comes to inflation. We were expecting 2.6% after it being 2.4% last month. We got 3.0% read annual. Remember, the Fed is looking for 2%, so we don't like the direction that it's going. I can tell you, though, we are still expecting a rate cut next week from the Federal Reserve. Markets are absolutely pricing that in. But what I'm hearing from analysts is the trend that we're seeing with PPI today, CPI yesterday that you and I discussed, we could see less rate cuts in the next year, and that could be very difficult for a Trump stock market read.
All right, Kelly O'Grady, CBS News Money Watch correspondent. Great to see you out there at the New York Stock Exchange this morning. When we come back, we are awaiting someone coming to the podium at the White House press briefing room. A lot of topics that could be covered today from that podium, not the least of which Syria and what is happening there. We'll see you back here on CBS News 24/7 after the break. Our video monitors take us to the White House now as Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre delivers her daily press briefing. She delivered comments responding to the historic number of clemency grants issued by President Joe Biden earlier today. So let's dip into that now.
So today, President Biden announced that he is granting clemency to approximately 1,500 Americans, the largest act in a single day, who have demonstrated remorse and rehabilitation, as well as a strong commitment to making their communities safer. The president is commuting the sentences of 1,500 individuals who were placed on home confinement during the COVID-19 pandemic and who have successfully reintegrated into their families and communities. He's also pardoning 39 individuals who were convicted of 9 nonviolent crimes. The Americans receiving relief today include a decorated military veteran, a nurse who has led response for a number of natural disasters, and an addiction counselor who volunteers his time to help young people. That's just to name a few. Today's actions build on the president's record of criminal justice reform to help reunite families, strengthen communities, and reintegrate individuals back into society. The president has issued more sentence commutations at this point in his presidency than any of his recent predecessors at the same point in their first terms. He's also the first president ever to issue categorical pardons to individuals convicted of simple use and possession of marijuana, and to former LGBTQI+ service members convicted because of their sexual orientation. As the president has said before, America was founded on the premise of second chances. For far too long, our criminal justice system has closed doors of opportunity for too many people who should have the chance to once again participate in daily life and contribute to their communities. And as the president said in his statement, he will take more steps in the weeks ahead. He and his team will continue reviewing clemency petitions to advance equal justice under the law, promote public safety, support rehab and reentry, and provide meaningful second chances. And with that, I have my colleague here from the National Security Council, Admiral Kirby, to talk about foreign policy news of the day.
Afternoon, everybody. Sorry?
We're just saying hello, sir.
All right. Look, as y'all know, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is in Israel today. He just wrapped up a full day of meetings, including one with Prime Minister Netanyahu. Jake's meeting with the Prime Minister focused on the progress we've made in the region. That means ensuring the Lebanon ceasefire continues to hold, that we continue to engage with all Syrian groups to establish a transition toward an independent and sovereign Syria, and most importantly, that we continue to make progress toward closing a hostage release and ceasefire deal in Gaza so that the hostages, including Americans, can be reunited with their families, so that civilians in Gaza can receive humanitarian assistance that they desperately still need, and so that this war can come to an end. Jake will now travel to Doha and to Cairo to continue these efforts. His travel, of course, coincides with that of Secretary Blinken, who is traveling to Jordan and Turkey, making clear our commitment to a Syrian-led transition process so that the Syrian people and their aspirations can be realized. The president is being regularly briefed on all these meetings and remains in close touch with his national security team as the situation in Syria continues to develop, and it does continue to develop. Tomorrow, he's going to speak virtually with his fellow G7 leaders. They will discuss a range of issues. Our shared support to Ukraine, which comes, of course, after the United States dispersed $20 billion to a new World Bank fund that will provide economic support for Ukraine as part of the $50 billion G7 Extraordinary Revenue Acceleration Loan effort. And that, of course, I think, as you all know, leverages income earned from frozen Russian sovereign assets and increasingly puts the cost of war on Russia with no burden to the taxpayer here in the United States. We're going to continue to explore ways to make maximum use of those assets, by the way. And I'd note that also today the President approved a new security assistance package for Ukraine that will provide them with additional air defense, artillery, drones, and armored vehicles. It's the 72nd such drawdown package announced by the United States, and as the President made clear, we're going to continue to provide additional packages right up to the end of this administration. I think G7 leaders can also be expected to discuss ongoing developments in the Middle East, of course, how we're helping Israel defend itself against active threats, and how we're all working towards that Syrian-led process we talked about. Now, I'd also be remiss if I didn't just take a moment to highlight an important milestone in our efforts to keep faith with Afghan allies. As of today, the State Department has issued 76,000 special immigrant visas for Afghan partners and their families, surpassing the number of SIVs issued by all previous administrations combined since the...
You've been listening here on CBS News 24/7 to updates from John Kirby there, and also White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre on a wide range of topics. Jean-Pierre talked at the top of that experience with reporters that you were watching live about the commutations that were issued by President Joe Biden as he closes out his presidency. More commutations expected in the days to come, and more pardons as well. So we'll be watching for that. So let's talk about something happening on the West Coast, and that is this. The firefight continues against the massive Franklin fire in Southern California. Day 4 of the Malibu firefight, as we learn at least 9 buildings destroyed. More than 19,000 people ordered to evacuate, or at least warned to evacuate. We're talking about famous ranchers all the way to famous people. Dick Van Dyke and Cher among those who are on the run. 4,000 acres charred. Containment is at 10%. Jess, cheering for firefighters. We started our morning, we were at 3%, we went to 7%, now 10%.
That's a really big deal too, Reed. And the best part about the forecast for us as we head into this weekend, they're officially out of red flag warning conditions, and they're also going to be seeing some rain in the forecast right around the corner. So better yet, let's actually head straight to this. I want to show you what's going on for us. Rain is around the corner for us this afternoon, but then we get another batch of showers heading into our Saturday forecast. Now that it's starting to improve, that containment number, this is great news for the boots on the ground. The winds are dying down for us. We're out of those red flag warning conditions. That expired yesterday around 2 o'clock in the low-level areas, 6 o'clock up in the higher elevated areas. And now as we head into this weekend, one of the biggest concerns has to do with the smoke concentration. There's an air quality alert that's still in effect throughout Los Angeles and all throughout that basin as the smoke continues to sweep in from offshore. The winds are mostly driving in from the north, but that does push it back into communities like Long Beach, Torrance, all the way over into Compton and Los Angeles too. We'll continue to see this into the weekend forecast. The good news, though, as we head into the weekend, just around lunchtime today, they're expected to see light scattered showers, not amounting to much. But watch what happens as we advance the clock past Friday, all the way into our Saturday forecast. Saturday evening, we're expected to see light to moderate rainfall widespread throughout these communities. It is trickled in there, but this is also going to mean that the relative humidity increases. So good news across the board. The winds are dying down and the rain is on the way, Reed.
All right, that is good news. Also good news here, the family of a Hawaii woman who vanished in Los Angeles says she's been found safe. Hannah Kobayashi was reported missing weeks ago after she missed a connecting flight to New York. Police say Kobayashi later crossed the California border into Mexico. She did so voluntarily, they said, but she just never told her family. Her disappearance prompted her family to mobilize in LA. You see right there that mobilization to try to get her and locate her, including her father, Ryan. Now, there's a tragic side to this story. 2 weeks ago, the LA coroner says he died by suicide in a parking lot near LAX. Kobayashi's family did not say where she was found. Tech giant Meta has donated $1 million to President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration fund. The donation comes after CEO Mark Zuckerberg met with Trump at Mar-a-Lago. It's a big change from 3 years ago when Trump's Facebook account was suspended after the January 6th insurrection. That's it for us at CBS News 24/7. We'll be back here tomorrow, same time, same place. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.